Before we begin, imagine waking up to a billionaire CEO standing outside your broken door at sunrise, not to offer charity, not to demand anything, but to thank you for saving the life of someone she loved more than anything in the world. This is the story of a poor single father who took the only night job no one else wanted, yet his single act of courage turned his entire life upside down by morning. Trust me, you'll want to hear every second of this. And hey, before we start, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss more true kindness tales that warm the heart and shake the soul. Ryan was a poor single father whose life had collapsed the day his wife passed away, leaving him alone with a 6-year-old daughter, Asa, who depended on him for everything. Their tiny rented room leaked when it rained, the electricity often went out, and the landlord never missed a chance to remind him of overdue rent. Every day, Ryan worked 2 shifts, but it was never enough. Food prices kept rising, and Asa needed school fees, shoes, and medicine for her recurring cough. When the factory he worked at reduced his hours, he found himself pacing the streets late one night looking for work, any work. That's when he came across a notice taped to an old streetlight: night security guard needed, high pay, immediate start. But below that, someone had scribbled, dangerous location. No one stays more than a night. Ryan stared at it, tempted yet uneasy. But hunger speaks louder than fear, and the thought of Asa sleeping on an empty stomach burned stronger than any warning. He took the number, got hired instantly, and by 10 p.m. he was reporting to an abandoned, half-constructed corporate building situated far outside the city. The manager didn't hide the truth. Suspicious noises, missing tools, strange lights, everyone who worked nights quit by morning. But Ryan couldn't afford the luxury of fear. With an old flashlight, a frayed uniform, and a promise to Asa that he'd be home before she woke, he entered the dark building. Hours passed quietly until around 2 a.m., when he heard a metallic crash from the underground basement. His heart thumped, but his feet moved anyway. The image of Asa fueled his courage. As he descended the dusty concrete steps, he saw something unexpected: a young girl, maybe 8 or 9, sitting behind construction materials, crying, bruised, freezing, her hands tied. Shock washed over him. This was no ghost story. Someone had kidnapped her and left her there. Without thinking, he freed her, gave her his jacket, and asked who she was. She whispered her name, Alina. When he asked her address, her answer hit him like thunder. She was the daughter of Mayor Yusuf, the billionaire CEO of Yusuf Industries. That name alone could shake the entire city. Before Ryan could process anything, footsteps echoed above, heavy, rushed, dangerous. Someone was coming back. He grabbed the trembling girl, lifted her into his arms, and ran through the pitch-black corridors, avoiding every creak and shadow. The kidnappers were returning, furious, shouting orders. By the time he managed to slip out the side door, dawn was breaking. Ryan raced home with the girl hidden under his jacket, praying no one followed him. When he finally reached his room, breathless, terrified, and shaking, he sat Alina on the only chair they owned, gave her water, and promised he would take her home safely when the streets were safe. But he had no idea that by sunrise, the entire city would be looking for her, and that his doorstep would become the center of a billionaire's desperate search. Before the sun had fully risen, helicopters were circling overhead and police sirens echoed through the narrow streets of the old neighborhood. Ryan peeked outside and saw officers moving door to door with urgency. Alina sat quietly, wrapped in his blanket, still frightened but comforted by Asa, who offered her biscuits and tiny smiles. She can stay with us forever if she wants, Asa whispered innocently, not understanding how the world outside was shaking because of the missing girl in their home. Suddenly, a convoy of black cars screeched to a halt in front of their building, and within seconds the entire street was swarming with guards in suits. Before Ryan could move, their shaky wooden door swung open, and a woman rushed in, strong, elegant, powerful, yet trembling like any mother whose child had been lost. Mayor Yusuf, the billionaire CEO, dropped to her knees the moment she saw Alina and burst into tears as she held her daughter tightly. For several minutes, the room was filled with nothing but sobs and relief. Then Mayor looked up at Ryan, this poor man in a torn shirt, exhausted, eyes red from the night, and asked in a breaking voice, how did you save her? Ryan explained everything, from the abandoned basement to the escape, leaving out nothing. Every word tightened Mayor's expression, not with anger but with overwhelming gratitude. She stood up, wiped her tears, and said firmly, "You saved my daughter's life. I owe you everything." The neighbors gathered outside, whispering, stunned that a billionaire was standing in Ryan's broken doorway. One guard discreetly placed a blanket over the cracked frame to give them privacy. Mare looked around the tiny room, the broken fan, the empty food shelf, the thin mattress, and her eyes softened. "You struggled alone, didn't you?" she asked gently. Ryan nodded, embarrassed. He didn't want sympathy, he just wanted honest work. But Mare wasn't offering sympathy, she was offering respect. Suddenly, her head of security entered and whispered something urgent. The kidnappers had been caught, and their statements confirmed everything Ryan had said. When Mare turned back to him, her decision was instant and unshakable. "Ryan," she said, "I want you to work for me. Not as a guard in danger, but as someone I trust. Name any position, any salary, after what you've done, you deserve far more than you can imagine." Ryan was speechless. No one had ever valued him like this. But he couldn't think of himself. He looked at Asa, who was still sitting beside Alina, braiding her hair like they were lifelong friends. "I just want a safe life for my daughter," he said finally. Mare's smile warmed the room. "Then let me give you that safety. You gave me back my child. Let me help you protect yours." At that moment, everything changed. Papers were signed, arrangements made, and for the first time in years, Ryan felt hope as bright as the morning sun shining through the cracks in his old walls. Within a week, Ryan and Asa moved from their cramped, broken room to a clean, comfortable apartment arranged by Mare, not charity, but part of his new job contract as head of internal safety for all Yusuf Industries buildings. The salary was more than he had ever dreamed of earning, and for the first time, he could buy medicine for Asa without checking his pocket twice, could bring home food without calculating every coin, could let his daughter sleep without hearing the sounds of leaking walls and arguing landlords. Asa and Alina became inseparable, spending afternoons together drawing, reading, and talking about dreams that once felt too big for their small worlds. Ryan, meanwhile, worked with honesty and dedication, and Mare kept her promise. She treated him not as an employee but as a partner in protecting her company and its people. She often said, "A man who risks his life for a child he doesn't know is a man worth trusting with everything." As months passed, Ryan's transformation inspired everyone around him. Workers who once ignored him now greeted him with respect, neighbors who looked down on him now admired his strength, and Asa grew healthier, happier, brighter than ever. One evening, Mare invited Ryan and Asa to her home for dinner, wanting them to feel like family rather than staff. During the meal, Alina held Asa's hand and said, "Your dad saved my life. So he saved yours too, because now we're all safe together." Mare smiled, touched by the innocence and truth behind the words. After dinner, she handed Ryan a sealed envelope. Inside was a letter of appreciation, bonuses, and a long-term security contract that guaranteed his future. "Heroes," she said softly, "don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they're poor fathers fighting quietly for their children." Ryan's eyes filled with tears. He had spent years believing life was unfair, that hard work wasn't enough, that fate ignored the struggles of the poor. But now he realized something powerful. Sometimes fate tests you hardest just before giving you everything you deserve. As he walked home with Asa that night, he held her tiny hand and looked at the sky, clearer than he had ever seen it. A new dawn had begun for them, not because of money, not because of luck, but because of kindness, courage, and a night job no one wanted, which turned into a miracle at sunrise. And just before the video ends, dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so more people can experience these true kindness tales that remind us, even in the darkest nights, a single act of goodness can change everything.